But without any further ado, Alex Fast and Paul Sewald are here.
Yo!
How's it going,
And
guys?
I am so stoked for this. Paul, thank you so much for taking the time. Alex as well. I'm going to get out of here. Can't wait to hear everything you guys are going to talk about.
Awesome. All right. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, bud? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. All right, hold on. I got this whole big spiel I got to do first, and then we'll get to it. So,
Okay.
Listen, it's not very often you get to interview a guy who has one of the best fastballs in all of baseball, and that is not me blowing smoke either. By Stuff Plus, our guest has a top 5 four-seamer in all of baseball, filthier than Jacob deGrom, filthier than Garrett Cole, filthier than Liam Hendricks, countless others. It's not just filthy on paper either. It executes like crazy. The four-seamer had a top 5 swinging strike rate in all of baseball, which helped our guest today return a top 5 whip in all of baseball with a shockingly minuscule 0.77. More importantly, off the field, our guest is a truly stand-up human being, an amazing father, an A-plus golfer. He played Shinecock Hills a couple of weeks before the U.S. Open back in 2018, which I'm sure we'll have a conversation about, and a man who is as humble as his stuff is dominant, the inimitable Paul Sewald. Paul, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thank you so much for that introduction. That was fantastic.
Yeah, of course. First and foremost, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How's everything going this offseason?
Feeling good. So I had a couple of procedures right after the playoffs, a little elbow scope and some heel stuff, but feeling good, feeling ready. First bullpen tomorrow to on our way to spring training in a couple of weeks, and it'll be season before we know it.
It's unbelievable. I really do want to impress upon people too. Paul, I followed Paul for a while. Paul follows me on Twitter for some reason. And I do want to impress upon people truly that you are one of the kindest pitchers that I have talked to. Such a humble, kind dude. And I one of my things is always making sure people try to get to know the pitchers just outside of the sport, right? You're so much more than just a pitcher. And I do want people to know that, man, you're a good human being. You're a very good human being. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. My parents would appreciate that.
Good. Yeah. All right. So let's get into some of these questions that I have. I want to start with your four-seamer. I talked a little bit about it in the intro here. It's dominant and it's also super unique, right? And it's also not super velocity dependent, right? I mean, obviously the name of the game in baseball right now is dudes throwing 96, 97, 98, 100. That's not your four-seamer, but still it dominates overall. Can you talk to us just about your journey with your four-seamer throughout your career?
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey to get to here. I had 4 mediocre at best seasons in New York. I had some pitching coaches go back and forth on what they wanted me to do. For a little bit, I was throwing submarine, trying to throw sinker submarine. And I always felt like every once in a while when I threw the ball up, I thought, from a personal standpoint, oh, I blew it by him, which I'm not blowing it by him at 93. But if they're looking 91 and I throw 93, maybe I blew it by him. But it was the fact that it rose essentially out of my hand into the top of the strike zone that worked so well. But I always seemed to do it on accident. I never really tried to throw up. I always tried to throw to a location down and away, and it just happened. I overthrew and it kind of went up and in type of thing. So I get with Seattle Brain Trust, and they're trying to figure out, hey, we need you to throw the ball at the top of the zone every time you throw a fastball. That's what we need. And I just try and work on it. And we went to the alt side, and it finally clicked at the alt side. And a couple of weeks later, I got a call with them to get called up in May of 2021, and haven't looked back. And we just have worked through it, and it's gotten a lot better. And it feels good to have a fastball that I feel like I can play no matter if I'm behind in the zone or behind in the count or ahead in the count, and that obviously makes a difference.
So was there like a physical cue for you that helped it click? Like, was there something that you just changed in your mechanics that you were like, all right, this is my new physical cue that I'm going to stick with?
Yeah, I was struggling with it in spring training of 2021, and I'm playing catch, getting ready before the game, and it's like at 120 feet, I'm getting like unbelievable carry. It's feeling like it's coming out, and it's like really carrying, and that's what they tell me that I need, and I'm like, all right, how do I throw like I do at 120 on the mound? And I'm just kind of trying to think like, okay, I get a little bit of arc, I kind of get under it, and it kind of sails. I got to figure out how I can get under a pitch from 60 feet. So I kind of, this is just, we're trying to work through things, and I crouch down a little bit, try and figure out like, okay, if I can get under the ball, it may go up, but instead of getting on top of the ball, like I've been told, for 25 years how to throw.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let me see if I can get under a ball. And I kind of just started like in the pen, kind of like floating balls in, like starting with my elbow and kind of floating, just like you throw if you're playing, if you were just lobbing a ball to a 3-year-old that's trying to hit for the first time. And I said, okay, like that's kind of starting to get that backspin. And then like I kind of had the catcher stand up, and it's like, all right, I got it. I got it at maybe 6 feet. Like, how do I get it to 5 feet or 4.5 feet tall? And kind of just started crouching him down, down, down until we finally found like a great spot for me to focus on and just try and get under the ball and throw it as hard as I can, rising out of my hand.
That's amazing. I love that. That's such great insight. I feel like we really don't get to hear about that quite a lot. I that brings up another interesting question though. I mean, you've been a part of a few organizations. You obviously probably know a lot of pitching coaches, and a lot of fans nowadays feel as if they could be pitching coaches because we know how to work a baseball savant search engine. But I'd had a conversation with a pitcher a while ago, and there was a question about, well, why don't you increase the usage of this one particular pitch because it could theoretically improve your results? And there's always that kind of dichotomy of like, it's easy for me or for someone else to say that because that's not my livelihood, right? Like if I said, hey, throw your slider more because I think it'll help you, and you threw your slider more and it got hit more and you lost a job because of it, then I look like a jerk, right? Throughout your career as a pitcher, how do you navigate what you feel is likely best for your arsenal compared to what countless others have told you might benefit your arsenal?
Yeah, I'll stay away from my New York time, obviously, because it wasn't that successful, and there's kind of stuff going back and forth. But when you talk about transforming yourself with Seattle, I kind of was at first I was in this position of, well, you better fix whatever you've been doing, or you're probably out of baseball. So why don't we listen to them and try and figure out how to make that work? Because what I was doing in New York wasn't good enough to be a consistent major leaguer. So, going in with an open mind is a key. Now, if you're kind of right on the border and you're not, out of baseball or back in, that is harder to listen to, what the coaching staff or the front office has for you to say. But I think what's great about the Seattle Mariners is that I trust every single person who would come into a meeting to tell me something. If they have the data, they have not only data, but just like a track record of success that shows, hey, like if we think that you should throw your slider 50% of the time instead of 30% of the time, like they're probably up to something. Like they're not,
Yeah.
they probably have a reason for it. Now, I have no problem saying, why would you why do you think I should do that? And they'll tell me, and we kind of go back and forth, and we've had a couple conversations about stuff over the last 2 years. Like, yeah, that's not what I'm seeing on the mound, but like, I'm not perfect. So how can we get to be the best, I can possibly be? And it just goes back and forth. And it's, I'll talk to Joel Furman and, kind of, he'll say something. I'm like, well, in a game situation, I don't think about throwing 2 fastballs. Oh, I need to throw 2 sliders. This is like, it just kind of like works that way. And it's like, okay, then let's go into the series knowing, hey, these guys, A, B, and C, maybe err on the side of fastball. C, D, E, and F, maybe we should err on the side of slide. And it just kind of like works that way into how do we fix our pitch mix. And that's the easiest change you can do. That's developing pitches in the minor leagues is good, but then, you can always just say like, hey, we just want you to throw your slider 75% of the time, and people can come up and they can do that.
Sure. So that brings up another interesting point then too about preparation and the kind of mental aspect of the game, which I'm always fascinated by. So going off of what you just said, is there a moment where the analytics just leaves your head and it's just simply about execution? And then when is that moment? When's the last moment you're thinking about that sequencing? Is it as soon as you come onto the field, or it's even when you get to the park, you're just like, I'm focused on executing and not analytics right now?
Yeah. When the game starts, it's totally competition. Like working on your mechanics, thinking about, analytics, that is a death sentence. Anybody, hitters, fielders, pitchers, the whole group. If you're thinking about anything other than just competing, you have no chance. Like the margin of error is just so small. You have to just go out there and game. Now, after the game, we can take a look. We're there for 5 hours before the game. Let's take a look at, what have you seen in the last 9 innings? That's something we do. Is I get checked every 9 innings. Like, well, what did we see? Because any given night can be, a fluke. We play somewhere it's cold, or
Sure.
I get a bad batch of baseballs in the ninth inning and, the ball doesn't quite move. But like, let me look at the last 9 innings. Am I consistent with where we want to be? Is there something we need to fix so we nip it in the bud, 9 innings in, instead of, hey, I had a terrible 2022 season. Like, now I have to fix something in the offseason. So for me, it's like, we can talk about all that stuff until 7:10. At 7:10, it's like, hey, I'm just going to get ready, get warm. Let's go over a quick, like, who am I facing? I try and remember a little bit of the scouting report. And then, like, it doesn't even matter what the scouting report is, because, like, I may feel something different in the game. Cal may call something that it's like, oh, that wasn't what we talked about, but he's been behind the plate all game. And I'm kind of watching, like, you're right. This guy's kind of like, he hits fastballs, but I don't know, he's got a slow bat today. Like, I can blow this one by him. So for that stuff, it's just kind of like, it just takes game preparation and just, playing in a bunch of games, just know, like, hey, this is what I do really well. I'm just going to do it today.
So listen, I mean, even what you just said has me ready to run through a wall. It gets me so excited. But like you're talking about, we get this prep, we're studying 7:10, the game starts, right? And then you're kind of put on simmer, right? You've been boiling over beforehand because you're prepped, you're ready to go. This is how I'm feeling. I've got my warm-up pitches. This is what my body is that day. I slept well, I didn't sleep well. And then again, 7:00 hits, you're back on simmer. How do you ride that? How do you mentally deal with, I got to stay in this game, even though I'm probably not going to, get in there and work really until 9:30.
Yeah. You just kind of, you compartmentalize it. So I get to the field at 2:00 and I do 2 hours of work. It's prep, it's seeing the trainers, it's working out. It's, we'd go through our stretch and throw. Maybe that's my chance to work on a couple pitches before batting practice starts. And that's like 2 hours of really working. And then I kind of have like 2 to 3 hours where it's kind of hang out. I shag BP. I don't really run that much at BP, kind of just shag balls, throw them in, have some dinner, kind of like, play some cards, that sort of thing, kind of tune it down. And then it's like, okay, 7:00, I know I'm kind of peaking towards that 7th, 8th, 9th inning that I'm going to throw. So for the first 3, I'm kind of just watching the game, chatting with the guys in the pen. Maybe I do my quick workout in the first 2 innings before I go out to the pen, that sort of thing, where it's like, you just trend up until it's game time in the 8th, 9th inning. And then that's where my time is. So, and then that's something you just work on. And the most important thing is knowing when you're going to pitch, like what your spot is in your bullpen. And I think Scott and the whole group did a really good job of like, this is who you are in our pen. We had 8, 9 ridiculously good pitchers at any moment down there, but everyone knew their role. Not everyone is the closer. Not everyone is the fireman, but like, when that spot was called upon, they knew that was theirs. That's why they were mentally prepared. And I think that helps in why our bullpen's so good, is that everyone knows their role.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I imagine I imagine that takes some buy-in from the other relievers too, but I imagine once there is the buy-in, it builds this kind of team atmosphere, right? Like, I don't care when you put me in and I'm going to execute the way you need me to execute, it sounds like.
Yeah, we have a really good bond down there, that we talk about a bunch of things that is, like, we're very lucky that our starters usually go 5 and 6 innings. So it kind of gives us some time to talk, and we don't get overused. So I'm very thankful for all those guys. But, we kind of talk about like, hey, like, this is what I've seen your last 3. Like, hey, let's just mentally lock it. And a lot of that can be during stretch at 3:30. It can also be, at 7:15. You're kind of just like, hey, Castillo's throwing today. Like, we're not probably going to go in the game until 7th inning. Like, we're fine. We can just talk a little bit. But yeah, it just comes to, hey, this is what they ask us to do, and this is what they've talked about in their scouting report before the series. You need to be ready for that spot, and we're ready. And it's, the ultimate goal is to win the World Series, and we came up a little short, but everyone knows their role in making sure that we can be the best that we can be.
Man, I know you ended up short, but there were some fun playoff games for Seattle. That was a blast, man. All right, let's get to arguably the most important question that I have for you, which I didn't include in the notes on purpose. Are you still using the Callaway Epic driver in your golf game?
I got a Callaway Epic Speed upgrade.
You did?
What was that? Maybe like a year and a half ago. And it's definitely helping a little bit. Technology is, it's funny, when I first got into golf and kind of just picked up clubs, they're like, yeah, that's like if you used a bat that didn't fit you and you just went up to the plate. And I was like, well, no bats fit me because I'm a pitcher. So I don't really know. But getting fitted and everything has obviously helped my game a little bit. I still, it's still a hobby, and, I'm not that great at it, but it's, I enjoy it very much.
Okay. All right. That's good. All right. So let's go back to, you hit on this a little bit earlier too about like, this is what your last 3 or 4 outings were like to a starting pitcher gets rocked in any start and he knows, all right, I got 4 days. I'm going to prepare this way and I'm back out there on the 5th day and I can wash that away. You have a bad outing, you have something that doesn't go your way, you have no idea, obviously, when the next time you might be able to get into a game is. How do you bridge that gap? Is it as soon as I'm off the field, I'm not even thinking about it anymore, or what are the steps there?
Yeah, that's something that's evolved over the course of my career. I've gotten a lot better at it. It was something that I used to take home with me at night, lose a little sleep thinking about the outing, wake up, maybe still thinking about that outing slash, all right, well, I got to get better and put pressure on myself and, think about that. Where now, I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate to be in a situation where one outing isn't going to, send me down or get me
Mm,
DFA'd or anything like that. So and, we just have a lot of trust. The people in Seattle just have a lot of trust in me to, bounce back. And, for me, that's really helped throw it away as soon as I leave the field. Now, I'm not, we're all human. We all kind of think about when things don't go well and we have failure. But for me, it's like I could pitch again tomorrow in the exact same situation. We could be up one in the ninth. And if I blew the save tonight, I need to be ready tomorrow
yeah.
to turn it around. And so that as a reliever is the most important thing is just forgetting that you had a bad outing and just going right back to work. Easier said than done, but it is the most important thing is just having a short-term memory because you have to be ready the next night because I only threw 20 pitches, 25 pitches. That means I'm absolutely ready to go tomorrow. I need to lock it in again because if I'm called upon, I need to make sure that it doesn't happen twice in a row.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a fan, and sometimes I can get frustrated if a closer blows a save, but then I also take a step back and empathize with the fact that, like, when I mess up at work, I feel like a jackass and I think about it the entire night and then I try to not take it with me. And I don't have 40,000 people watching me when I do it. You know what I mean? I am fortunate enough that I can screw up in private and that's pretty fine with me. So I try to be pretty empathetic to the fact that that's what you guys are going through. And hopefully people listening, if that happens, realize the reliever is probably more upset than you are that it happened. So you can let it lie.
I know that seems shocking that we care about our job, but we actually care about our job. I understand that fan is short for fanatic, but like I really do care if I do well. This isn't
Yeah.
something where I don't care that I blew a save and we lost. Like do people act like that didn't matter to me? It matters more to me than it does to you, whether you gambled on the game, whether I'm on your
Mhm.
fantasy team or if you're just a general, Mariners fan. Like, please understand that. Obviously, I'm doing the best that I can. I didn't try to blow saves. I've never tried to blow a save in my life. I don't know anybody who's ever tried to do poorly.
Yeah, that's so great to hear you say that too, because it's like, yeah, I think that's just really important for fans to hear that no one is deliberately going out there to do that. Why did you throw that pitch there? Oh, I really wanted it to get hit. That's why. Oh, I really wanted to give up that home run. No, exactly. You're going out there to do the best that you can every day, and
Because our
hopefully
analytics
fans.
group has spent hours prepping for the
Yes.
series against Houston. We talked about it for an hour in our scouting report meeting before the series. Trent and I talked about it for 5 minutes before I went in the game. So I don't know, 7, 8 hours worth of work went into thinking I was going to throw that pitch. Like
Yeah.
we don't just go out there on a whim and be like, I don't know, I guess I'm going to try the split finger today in the biggest situation of the season. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of work that goes into it. That's why I threw the pitch. Did I throw it perfectly? Not every time, but sometimes I do
But
throw a
still.
great pitch and it doesn't work. Like they also get paid to hit, and it's just one of those things.
That's what cracks me up, man. I remember thinking a couple years ago when Snell was removed from a playoff appearance a little bit too early, and people were like, that's it. What are they thinking? And it's like, I guarantee you that there is a binder, like a binder of information about that man, about health, about circumstances, about inning. And the fact that people, like, I understand, obviously, analytics is a spectrum, and maybe sometimes some people can go too far, or maybe sometimes people can go too far in the other direction. I get it. But it always frustrates me when people just feel like it's just some manager being like, I guess I'll do this. No, it's not that. It's never that. All right, I want to talk a little bit about your slider. I was looking at your Brooks baseball page, and it seemed like there was a little bit of an evolution in the slider movement profile over the course of the season in terms of some of the vertical movement that the pitch got. Is that true?
Yeah, so it seems crazy to say that I had as good a year as I did without having my slider feel good, but I really didn't feel like I had my best slider at any point in
Wow.
2022. There were times that it kind of would trend up. The first month and a half, it was awful. And then we had a few weeks where it was good. And, we kind of went back and forth where it's like, God, it hasn't really been good this month. And then I'd have a good couple of weeks. And then it was just okay. And then I really felt like started to make a little bit of stride in September and October. I really thought I threw some really good ones, which is unfortunate that we just, the season ended at that point, but we're trying to remember exactly what I was feeling, exactly what I was doing to go into this year. And, I'm just trying to throw the perfect sweeping fastball with, as positive a vertical movement as possible and just as much horizontal movement as possible. We're not trying to get that depth. And, if I get depth, then it happens. But yeah, so, it's just trying to trend and trying to work on it. And, you talk about starters have 4 days in between and they get to throw 2 pens maybe to fix it. I have to fix a lot of my stuff in the bullpen 30 seconds before I go in the game, or stretch it 3:30. If if you're trying to work on something, it's difficult, but that's just the life of a reliever. And, it's just one of those things that you have to try and get the feel. And that's part of throwing every day and trying to make sure you have the feel of everything. But I can go 2 weeks with it not being good. And then I could, have a great day and then it'd be bad a week. And then, then I have 2 months where it's nasty, and it's just one of those things. You just got to go out there with what you have that day. And that's where like the scouting report is. But, I got to shake. Like I just don't have it today.
Yeah, it's just like it seems like it's such a moment to moment job, which like I don't know how that doesn't give you crippling anxiety. It does to me. Maybe that's why I don't throw baseballs for a living. It seems like now, just based off the interviews I've seen you have, and just the way that the way that you talk about pitching overall, that you've got a fairly good relationship with analytics. Was that always the case? Was this something where you were a little bit hesitant at first, or have you always been someone who's kind of interested in that aspect of the game?
Yeah, we were a little bit behind when I was in New York in the analytics department. So when I got there, I was like, oh, they have some information. That I realized, there's more out there, and, I'm not performing at the level that I want to perform at. And, this analytics, trend is going across the league, and you watch this person made this adjustment and went to the roof. This person made this adjustment and went to the roof. And then I came to the Mariners and was like, I don't know if I'm a major league pitcher, but like, I feel like there's more in the tank than I've shown. Like maybe I'm one of those guys that this analytics stuff works, and, I changed my career around, and I did. And, that just kind of opens me up to, what else is there? Like what else, what other information is out there? And it's hard because front offices can't share it with everybody because not everyone processes it the same.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting in my limited conversations that I try to have as often as possible with people in charge. And, they're just thinking about things that I've never thought about. It just is, well, that's just the way it is. Like, I don't really know. And they provide some information. It's like, okay, like that seems to back up what I've seen over the course of 30 years of playing and 7 years of Major League Baseball. So I'm just very interested in reaching my potential, and very interested in how somebody can literally click and the next day they're a different pitcher. Like that always interested me, and it's incredible that it happened to me. And that's kind of what I just explained to people, that it's like it can happen overnight where something works for you.
Yeah. And to be clear with this next question, I'm 100% not asking you to speak for anyone, but my interpretation too is that pitchers who might be a little bit more hesitant to embrace analytics the reason behind that could be, well, I've gotten this far with this, and no one's going to, no guy who sits behind a desk all day looking at algorithms is going to tell me how to throw this way, because if you're wrong, I'm out of a job. Is that your experience with, again, this isn't about you putting words in other people's mouth or saying, oh, this pitcher thinks this. In your experience, though, do you find that some pitchers operate that way? Or are there other reasons why they might not be as into analytics?
Yeah, that's one of the more difficult parts of this line of front office analytics. People say this to the coaches, to the players.
Yeah.
How do we get our message across this way? And then how do I also send it back to the front office where it's not, nerd says this, actual player thinks this, and then we just clash all day. And there's no there's no conversation, there's no communication, there's no, can I explain my side without you being irrational and thinking, you know everything. And, you know, there's a lot of Major League Baseball players have been very successful their entire lives and
Yeah.
have fairly large egos, because why wouldn't we? Like, things have
Mhm.
gone pretty well for most people here. So a lot of us think we know a lot about everything. Now, it's when you start to open your mind to, I don't know everything about everything. I know a lot about pitching. I'm a very good Major League pitcher, but like, I don't know everything about it. And I don't know why it happens. Sometimes it just happens. So why don't I listen to somebody who may know why or why not? And then we can go back and forth. And it's just, it's just difficult that, like you said, I've been successful for 30 years. Why would I try and change anything that I've
Yeah.
never done? This works for me. Well, does it work to get you there? Does it work to get you to an all-star level? Does it work to get you to one of the best players in the league? Or does it just worked to get you that? Like, that's just part of it. And the Mariners have done a really good job of hiring people in the middle of the analytics department and the players that can give a perspective of, here's what they're talking about. Like, yes, I'm listening to you, but like, what do you think of this in more of a baseball term? And that's Woody and Trent are unbelievable at that. And I think that's part of the reason that we have a very good line of communication going back and forth. And that leads to the analytics department also being open to, just because the numbers say this doesn't mean that I know for a fact that works. Like, they have to listen to us as well. Like, all parties have to be open to communication or it doesn't work. And that's why I think we do a really good job of that. It's because nobody goes into it with a huge ego that I know everything, but I do know a little bit. Why don't we talk about what I know?
Yeah, that's fun. So it's really all about level setting, right? Understanding the context, understanding where you're coming from. I've never, in all the talks I've had with people, I've never heard it really put that way about it's a two-way communication. I've always focused on the fact that, like, okay, you need a conduit. You need someone who can speak the language of a pitcher, who is going to be able to relate to them in a way that's not like, you need to do this or do that. Like, it has to be about physical cues. It has to be about pitching. But I never really thought about it the other way, where those analysts need to also understand that language, not so they can just convey that information, but so they can receive it back as well. That's a really fascinating point. We're going to get back to the mechanics and the mentality questions too, but I want to spend the next couple of minutes getting to know you and your personality. Obviously, you're an avid golfer. The first thing I have for you is Edwin Diaz has the trumpets, right? Felix Bautista has, last year they started doing this thing with The Wire. They play The Wire theme music in Baltimore. I'm talking unlimited resources. The owners come to you, Paul. They say, we're doing the shebang. What you want, you get. What production are you getting when you're coming to the mound to close a game?
Well, that's funny, because my first year and a half in Seattle was lackluster in what I felt was the best bullpen in the league's intros to when we come into a game. And, we kind of started talking, and, we came up with the nickname Los Bomberos.
Yeah.
We were sitting in the bullpen in Texas trying to figure out, like, they said, like, come up with a nickname for this group on Twitter. And we were kind of like, we should come up with a nickname. And Mooney came up with, Los Bomberos is Spanish for the firemen. We put out the fires. And I was like, that is dope. Like, that is pretty sick. So we sent it to, and they're like, all right, when you guys come back from your road trip, we'll be ready. And they started, Fireman by Lil Wayne and Flames on every single scoreboard, and they turn the lights out, and like, now they have the spotlight on us as we run in. And now we don't have one person where a lot of teams have the guy.
Sure,
we have a few, but we have quite a few Bomberos, and like, it's pretty nasty when we send somebody out there and it goes pitch black and we get the spotlight. It's pretty good. They start to bump the music, and they've started to do a really good job of it.
Dude, that's sick. I like your music suggestion of Lil Wayne's Firemen than the song I was thinking, which is It's Raining Men, which would probably be not as exciting for the Los Bomberos to run out to the mound to. We had a few questions from Twitter. People were excited to ask you. This one kind of cracked me up, though. You're at home, all right, and you're throwing a non-baseball thing, right? You're throwing a remote. You're throwing a football, okay? How much influence does that baseball windup have when you're just casually flipping things around?
Yeah, I saw that was pretty good. When I think about it, probably not a ton, I don't try to throw things as hard as I possibly can in the house. That stopped at like 5 with my brother and I, and my mom's like, "You're not allowed to play baseball in the house. Like, you guys throw and hit too hard." So things are a much slower pace if I throw something in the house,
Yeah.
whether it's a remote, a tennis ball for my dog, a toy. Like, for the most part, it's a lot slower, so it's not really close to my mechanics.
Got you. What kind of dog do you have? I know people are really going to want to know that.
We have a toy Australian Shepherd. So
Oh my
she's
God.
a purebred Australian Shepherd, but she's 10 pounds. So she's like tiny.
But that's like energy, right?
So we joke she's like half cat because she just could lay around like all day and like just be relaxed. When she gets going, she's crazy. And like when she gets the zoomies, there's like no stopping her. And when
Sure.
we go to the dog park and just send her, like she's great. But if we're just sitting at home, she just will cat nap like all day. So we got a half dog, half cat. But
I love it.
my in-laws loved her so much that they got one, and theirs is like never is nonstop. Like she never stops. So I think we got a good like relaxed one that we don't need any more chaos in our lives after our daughter has taken over the house.
Yeah, so okay, there's two things to get to there. One, this is something that I still can't stop thinking about. Do you have one of those like Chuckets, like one of those things that like throws the ball for the
No,
dog?
no,
Okay,
because
because
we just do down the hall, and I can just lob it, no big deal.
okay.
And then when we go to the dog park, she likes to just play with the other dogs. So it's never really like a game of fetch all day long.
Have you seen those things though? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
It's
they're
like a
unbelievable. And like we
dude,
just need to get those for batting practice so we can just like instead of throwing, I can just like do that thing right into the bucket.
Paul, I am begging you. Every time I throw it with my dog, I think if I gave this to an MLB pitcher, like would it just go a mile? Like would they just be able to like chuck this a mile? I feel like with your mechanics, it would go forever.
I think it would be fantastic.
All right.
I
All
think
right.
it'd
I'll
be
hit you up
great.
about that later.
Maybe
I'm going to ship
maybe I
one to
need
your
one of those
house.
for BP so that I can just stop throwing and I can just like lob it in, but it's just like 100 miles an hour right to the bucket.
You're going to kill someone. I love it. So you have one daughter, right?
Yes. Chloe.
How old is she?
17 months.
17 months. That's right. Okay. So
Yes.
how has that journey been? I mean, I imagine that first of all, I also have a kid, 10 months old, so
Yep.
I'm a little bit behind, but like you obviously have a different lifestyle than I have. What has that transition to fatherhood been like for you?
It's been the best. It's been the best. I don't think it's a coincidence that my playing career has gotten a lot better since, first
Mhm.
we found out pregnant and then that we had Chloe. So I definitely think that there's a connection there. Um, the season is really tough. You leave for 10 days and it's like she's like different when I come back.
Yeah.
Or, you get 4 hours, 5 hours before I go to the field that she's awake before nap time. And which is limited, but which is tough. But the off season is just like just be all dad. Like so I work out and throw when she's napping and like so we just get endless time together, which is just the best thing ever. And you're at that stage, but I will say like since I'm a couple months ahead of you, it really starts to get a lot of fun when they start like they start talking, they start
Mhm.
walking and like really like expressing themselves and developing that personality. So it's been fun. We really enjoy it.
I hear the game really changes when they get mobile. They start walking around and it's
Yeah, when you can't just lay them down and go to the bathroom and then they're in the exact same spot as when you get back, like that's nice until they start going everywhere and you're like, holy moly, like she doesn't stop. She doesn't stop. Which is wouldn't trade it for the world. But it's a lot of work and we're at it a lot.
yeah, I'm with you. We've got time for a few more questions if that's cool with you. Is that
Yeah, yep, we have
yeah?
some time.
All right, great. I didn't know if you had to bang out. So one more before we get back to the more serious baseball talk. People are curious in the comments to know, is there a drink of choice on the course that you're rocking with? Is it just water, or if you're having a nice day on the course, what are you drinking?
Now I drink a lot of water for baseball, and when I
Mhm.
go out to play golf, it's to have fun. Like, of course, I want to shoot well and I want to play well, but it's a hobby. Like, I want to have fun while I'm out there. So, a little bit of everything. I like to do a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
Uh, Shotgun at the turn, a beer shotgun at the turn
Great.
has been my thing for a long time, which is seemed to do a lot better on the back nights. Maybe I needed to do a shotgun at the first tee before we head out there, but that's been my thing for the longest time. And then anything we can have out there. We can have some beers, transfusions, something fun. I get to play a little bit during the season, and when we go to these places, I typically ask them like, well, what does the bar make? Like, what do you guys do? I'll take one of those because I'm typically not picky. I'm out there just having fun.
Are you're a little bit of a foodie too, right? Like you like to. Am I crazy in thinking that?
A little bit. I like to, when we go out to these cities, it's like, a lot of guys will just sit there and they'll get Starbucks or order Uber Eats or whatever, and it's like, well, I'm in Dallas, like, why don't I go get some barbecue? Or I'm in Miami, like, I should go get Cuban sandwiches somewhere. I have to have lunch at some point before I go to the field. I might as well get something that's, famous in that city. So yeah, maybe a little bit. I'm not crazy. I don't, I'm not Mark Canna with his, that's his entire Instagram, but it is something nice that, like, we're so lucky that we get to travel as much as we do and see these places. And, I just try to, see sights and get some good food in where I'm from.
Yeah. That's funny to hear. Yeah. Mark Canna, I'm like waiting for his Food Network show to appear. This is like one of my favorite. I usually kind of say this for the end, but it's one of my favorite questions to ask. Is there what's the most memorable pitch you've thrown? And it could be like anything. When I say that, like, what's the first pitch that comes to your mind, the most memorable?
Yeah, the outing and the pitch that really does it for me. In 2021, when was this? So this was like the week after my daughter was born. I just got back from paternity leave. We went to Houston. We lost the first two. We're battling, and we go to extras. And I come in, there's already a guy on second, give up a base hit. We throw home. Altuve goes to second. We decide to walk Brantley to load up the bases, nobody out in Houston in the bottom of the whatever inning it was. And it's like, all right, like, no out, nobody out, bases loaded. Like, I have nowhere to go but to essentially, like, punch everybody out. I struck out Carlos Correa. I struck out Jason Castro, and went 3-2 on Gurriel, and he battled. Like, I just kept throwing fastballs at the top, and he kept battling. He's one of the hardest guys in the league to strike out. And finally I got him on, the highest fastball that I threw. He finally just got under it. And it was like, wow, like, we just dodged this bullet against a team that we just, as we showed in the playoffs, we're very close. We just haven't gotten over the hump. And it was like, to do it against those guys in their park in that situation, that's probably, when I think of my Mariners career, that one is probably the one that sticks out the most.
I love that. What about, I think that's awesome. I also love when I ask this question to pitchers, because the memory that you guys have always cracks me up. Like, I feel like sometimes I can ask guys about like something in their life and they don't remember, but when it comes to like a pitch, they're like, I know the date, it was in 2021. I know who was on base. I know what the exact order was. I love that.
Yes.
So
my wife doesn't love it, but that is true.
Oh, do you find that in your real life, your memory isn't quite as good?
Yes, I've been told once or twice that my memory is not that great.
Fair enough. So what about if we zoom back and not even Seattle career, like your personal career? So we can go back to high school, middle school, whatever, college. Like, was there another one that was also there for you, or no?
Not a single pitch that really is like very memorable. Obviously, there's games, forever that you think about when when you're in the zone and you look back, you're like, wow, that was like a whirlwind. I don't even remember that game. There's been so many over the years that, I'm very fortunate. That's why I am here where I am today. I think the most important one for me last season was the last one at home. It was my first time in the playoffs, and I didn't perform well at all in Toronto. Now I was battling things, and, I was coming off a little bit of an injury that we were working through and wasn't feeling comfortable. And thank goodness that, we had the greatest comeback in playoff history. So it didn't end up mattering. In game one in Houston, was really difficult to try and take, that we were so close. And had we won that game, I try not to think about it, but I'd be curious to see how that series would have gone had we won that game and I finished that game out. But it was nice. It was very nice. Robbie and I had, a little bit of a talk after that game about, like, because he didn't pitch well in Toronto. That wasn't how he wanted. And it's like, we wouldn't be here without the two of us, but, like, we're going to get one more chance. Like, let's make the most out of the next chance that we get. And he pitched really well in that 18th inning in game 3. And, I had 2 scoreless, and it kind of felt like, all right, like I didn't get us all the way here to struggle in the most important times. We just, it's just a learning curve, was my opinion. And I feel like debuts are the same way. Like some people have the best debuts, and I had an awful debut. I just like emotionally was just like so crazy. I got no sleep the night before traveling, and like I couldn't feel my legs, I couldn't feel my hands because it's free. Like, and I just had a really, really poor outing. But like some people just are different, handle that differently. Not that they're less nervous or whatever. They just handle it better. And I didn't really handle the first one as well as I would like to. And so now I feel really good about like, okay, like, hopefully in 2023 when we're in the playoffs, there won't be this, the bright lights are on you, let's get ready. And I'll just be my normal self. So the most important one I think for me all year was the last one, that we can go into the offseason like, when I'm ready to pitch in the playoffs next year, I'm going to be my normal self.
I love it. I love it. What about, you've worked your entire life to do this, and you are succeeding at the biggest level. I mean, I know you've harped on some of the things that weren't perfect, but you're there and you're in a situation where it can't even be perfect, right? Which is kind of nice because you've succeeded to this point. What was that holy crap, I've arrived moment? When did that happen where you're like, I'm here. I did this. I'm here.
Yeah. It was my rookie year was a really big one. So, I got called up, bad first one, whatever, second one, got sent down a couple days later, a couple more weeks in AAA, came back, pitched well in a blowout, but it wasn't really necessarily, it didn't mean anything to anybody. It was just a meaningless inning. But for me, it was like, all right, I got through a 1, 2, 3 inning. Like, this is great. A couple days later, I threw 2 scoreless, 8th and 9th in a blowout. It was like, okay, like I did my part in a blowout. The next day, I was the first one called upon and threw 4 innings against the Marlins and shut them down. And that was the first time that I had faced like Stanton, Yelich, Bohr, Ozuna, Real Muto, and kind of like went through a lineup, like mowed through, I thought was the top 3 lineup in baseball that year. And I kind of just sat back after, and it was 4 innings and I was exhausted, and kind of just like went back and was like, well, there aren't any better lineups than that. And that, we crewed through 4 there. Like, that was pretty good. And it kind of, and that was my moment where I could stop kind of looking over my shoulder, like, are they gonna come get me because I threw 2 innings and I'm gonna get sent back to AAA? Sure. It was like, all right, like that was pretty good. And it kind of put me in this like comfortable zone the rest of the time that I was in the big leagues for my rookie year. And I think that was probably the most important outing that I had, where it's like, look, the lineups aren't any better than that. Those guys are MVPs. Like, and I managed to get through that. Like, I can get these guys out. It's the first time that I really got through a major league lineup facing the best players in the league and pitched well against them.
I love it. We have 2 more questions for you. One is, this has kind of been one of the themes of our conversation here. I always try to convey that pitchers are human beings before anything else. You hit on this a little bit earlier, but is there anything you wish fans were more in the know about that they currently aren't about players? Like the example I gave was, some guys deal with anxiety, some guys deal with depression. What do you wish you could say to fans to give them more insight there?
Gosh, that's a great question. I just wish somebody could sit, like, I almost wish a fan who feels the need to write on my Instagram after a game could just sit by me for 3 days and kind of see what it's like, how much work I put in, what it's like to deal with, maybe a child that didn't sleep well the night before, and like, but it doesn't matter because I'm dad, and like, I have to do that. And then I have to have her in the morning before I go to the game, and, you don't get sleep, or, you get food. I don't want to say food poisoning like Jordan, but like, you just don't feel good because you ate something poorly. And it's like, it does not matter. It's 45,000 people. And like, I can't tell Scott, like, hey, like my tummy hurts. Like, I can't pitch the 9th inning today. You kind of go out there and you just battle, and like, you just don't feel great all the time. And like, you don't see that because I jog out from the 9th or jog out from the pen like the same every single time and go out there. And I just wish they could see, like, we are humans. Like, I have a family just like everybody else. Like, in the off season, I don't think about baseball. I just think about that. And I think about like how do we schedule stuff for the new house? How do I schedule my wife playing tennis and Chloe's got this? And it's like, I'm normal just like you. I'm just really good at throwing a baseball, and it had worked out really well for me, and I got very lucky that I got put in a situation like this and have made the most of it. But like, we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner the exact same as everybody else. I just, I'm very good at throwing a baseball, and lucky there's a lot of money and there's a lot of people watching it, and so I get paid a lot of money to do it. But I'm normal just like everybody else. So, the Instagram stuff is tough when you tell me,
Yeah.
to go kill myself because I blow a save, and it's like, I don't think too much about it because it's like I just know that you gambled on the game, and it's like it's not that big, like it's not that big of a deal to me. But it's like those things aren't great to hear. They're not great to hear.
Yeah.
Like, and that's part of the negative of the gambling is that people lose money on a game that maybe I don't perform in, which is difficult. But at the end of the day, it's sports, and things are crazy.
Yeah, it's like you said, you already have so many things to think about. Like, I was just thinking about the gambling thing because it's clearly a bigger part of the sport. It's clearly something that's going in one particular direction that we can kind of all read the tea leaves about. I never even thought about the perspective of like, that's you shouldn't have to think about that. That shouldn't even be
Yeah.
something that enters your brain. It's like you said, like I was up at 2 a.m. because my daughter's a little colicky or something or whatever. Like that's the thing that's furthest from my brain right now. So that's really good insight for sure.
Yeah. My wife had a great idea that I turned off my social media before the playoffs started in case I had a poor performance that would lead to that stuff. And it just is nasty. And it's like, I don't need that in my life, no matter what. And a couple Mariners, and I credit a lot to the Mariners fans. They're great people. And like most of the time it's gamblers that really come for me in my DM. So it's not Mariners fans being rude or anything like that.
Sure.
But they thought that somebody thought that they like criticized me off of social media, but I had already done that, and so I didn't really see it. And luckily, one of our fantastic reporters and writers for the Mariners kind of said, like, instead of talking shit to Paul, why don't you donate to the charity that he's working with? And we raised an extra like $10,000 because Mariners fans were so great. So social media can be terrible, but I'm very, very, very thankful that social media has been great in raising more money for kids. So at the end of the day, it worked out just fine in the postseason with not having my social media.
I love that. I love it. So what is your charity too? So people who they're listening, if they want to donate.
So it used to be Eastside Baby Corner. So if you go on any of my stuff, it's for Eastside Baby Corner, but they just changed their name to Kid Vantage Northwest. So it's an organization in the greater Seattle area that raises money for kids that just don't have the necessary resources to be the best that they can be. There's lots of families that are struggling with can't find formula, can't get food. Car seats are drastically expensive, and everyone's different, and you don't know how to put them in. And your child safety is the most important thing, and they are the best in town at putting those in and making sure everything's safe. They're an amazing organization that's been helping kids around Seattle for a very, very long time. And when my wife and I had Chloe last year, that when you think about, I have all the resources in the world. I'm very fortunate to have money where I don't have a problem, buying extra milk, food, diapers, all this stuff. But I know there's people that aren't nearly as fortunate, and Kid Vantage does an amazing job of making sure that they get the necessary supplies to the people that absolutely need it.
That's awesome. I love that. That's great. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to end with a quote. I reached out to this person to try and get a question from him for you. He didn't have one for you. He might have reached out to you. Did he? I don't know if he did. It's
I'm curious.
It's from Jerry Blevins. And he did not have a question for you, which I really thought he did, but he said, I want you to tell him that he's a hell of a pitcher, and I'm proud to see how dominant he's become. He's a testament to trusting yourself and taking your career in your own hands. So I wanted to share that with you.
That means a lot. Jerry's very influential in my first couple of years in New York. He was my catch burner. He, is an 8-year veteran, and I'm, a week into the major leagues, bothering him with questions all the time and trying to figure out how to be a good major leaguer in this league. And he's done it a long time. And I'm very thankful for him. And he was there when when I chose to tell the team that I'm not going to throw submarine anymore, and I'm going to throw the way I've thrown my whole life. And so I know that's a little bit of what he means. And yeah, Jerry's a great friend, and I'm very thankful for him showing me the routine and how to become, a great major league reliever. And I wouldn't be here today without Jerry. So thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it.
He really is a good friend. I thought he was going to be like, ask him about the time he went streaking through Safeco or something like that, but he kept it on the TL.
He's great. He's great. I appreciate it, and he's doing a great job at his post baseball career of talking Mets, and it's fun to see that. And it didn't work out for me in New York, but nonetheless, there's a lot of people that really made a great impact on me when I was there, and I'm thankful for that.
Gotcha. Well, Paul, I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm a pretty diehard Orioles fan, but I'm not going to lie. You've swayed me a little bit to root for the Mariners a little bit this year. So I appreciate you coming on. I wish you nothing but the best of luck, both in fatherhood and in pitching this upcoming year. And thank you so much for your time, man.
I appreciate it. We're a fun group. We like to have fun. We like to, win, dance, repeat is kind of our thing. So, we like to have fun up there. And, I know most people on the East Coast are already sleeping by the time we start our games, but, if you people can stay up late, we're a fun group to watch, and we're excited for 2023.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. All right. We'll talk to you in a bit.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
That was so wonderful.
No, well, he's the man.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was so insightful. And I think the real thing that I took away the most there was the discussion about what it's like being a baseball player, and you're just trying to do your job, and getting these DMs that can be really tough. And essentially, you said, you feel and it's private. And he has his kid he's dealing with in the night before, like every other person out there, and then he's got to go and save a game for the Mariners. It's there are all those things that we don't know about a lot. That was awesome. That was a great time.
Yeah, I was awesome, and I appreciate that he was able to be, kind of so vulnerable about that stuff. It was great to see. I mean, it felt like there were no real kind of canned answers there for him. He just feels like a really genuine dude, and it was cool to hear. It was interesting to hear about that stuff, right? Because, like, man, we're also human beings in the fact that, like, sometimes we can be gluttons for punishment. Like, you can be like, man, I screwed up, and I bet Twitter's going crazy about this right now. And then you check and you're like, yep. And then next thing you know, you're just in this kind of rabbit hole of like, okay, everyone's dunking on me. And that's tough. And so I appreciated his vulnerability there. The comments about things going both ways with the players and the coaches is really fascinating. And then also just the thing about adjustments is bananas. Right. I never even thought about that, about how you're right. Guys have two bullpens. Starters have two bullpens between to be like, all right, let's focus on this. He's like, my bullpen is right before I'm in. Yeah.
What's interesting, I mean, I when I was in college, I as a reliever, I had to do my drills every day. Like, legitimately, I didn't know if I was pitching or not. That's how I would warm up. And so I would always have, like, in that time, I'd have like 3 pitches to say, okay, cool. I got to make sure I have my grip for my split change or whatever that day. Right. And I imagine also when you're in the majors, like, you don't necessarily get that. You don't want to. You want to save your bullets as much as you can too. And I didn't realize that as much as extreme as he described it. Oh boy, yeah, it's so nice being a starting pitcher. It is so fun.
It's nice, yeah. It's also. I was thinking too about, like, he talked about the moment that they all kind of got together as a collective bullpen to decide on what their nickname was going to be. And then, you think in the context of that, of like what it would mean then to be like, if Paul got traded, right? And what that means for like a core group of guys, because that's going to happen. Someone's not going to execute and they're going to go down, or someone's going to get traded. And I wonder, we don't talk a lot about, because we're so focused on fantasy, we don't really talk a lot about team chemistry, because it's also something we don't really know anything about, right? Like, I don't know how well the Orioles relievers get along, but I guess there is something to say too from an organizational standpoint of like, man, are we going to trade the guy who is not only really good, but is the cornerstone of the bullpen of keeping these guys together? That's an interesting perspective to think about for sure.
Oh man, I would it's like the most joked about thing, I think, or like a potential show, how good a show would it be, that's called The Pen. And I would want it to be a bullpen reliever who also wants to write and call it the pen. But really just the perspective of, a bullpen bonding together,
Yeah.
I think there's not enough coverage on that. We focus on everybody else, and the whole tapestry is woven by relievers coming in and out.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's really good
I
stuff. I
wanna see
also
more
think
of it.
about I think about too, because I know we have another like minute or two before the next presentation we have here. I think about too, like a guy, a pitcher. It's just such a different routine. The starting pitcher is going to
Yeah.
be like, all right, like he says, we get there 4 or 5 hours before the game. Those are my 4 or 5 hours of prep, and then I'm going out and I'm executing immediately on what we just talked about. And
Mhm.
I can't imagine being like, okay, here's your 4 or 5 hours of prep. Here's all the analysis that we've done on these pitchers. Go sit in there for 2.5 hours, and then we're not going to use you. Like,
Yeah,
but
well, right, you're putting it on simmer. I thought that was interesting.
yeah,
You're
that's
really
just
putting it.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy to think about. And then just not knowing, right? It's, oh, well, we had 3 blowouts, so all that work you did was for naught.
Right. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Anyway, Fast, thanks a lot for setting that up, making that happen.
Yeah, of
Always,
course.
always a blast. This is all we're gonna get to see of you at PitchCon this year, which is very sad. It's almost like
As
you have a
Paul said,
baby or something.
as Paul said, I'm a dad. I gotta be a dad. I gotta be a dad.
And also great flex, of course, having the Emmy in the corner.
There she is.
But but anyway, thanks a lot for being here, Fast. Good to
Yeah,
see
of
you.
course.